Angelo, Giuliano, welcome. My name is Alex with the Reportify and WCICO iChongqing. Angelo, I'm catching you at a very busy time. I see you're in Latin America at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. We are at the COP30. I guess, my friend, you want to talk about a topic which is related to China. The place I've been
Yes.
living 30 years for the last 30
Mm-hmm.
years, and especially this relationship with Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So, shall
It's
we
been an
jump in?
interesting week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I can tell you on the mainland here, uh, we're starting to see some pushback on the prime minister's comments. Let's hear your insights on this. I mean, you have a lot of insights on China. You've been, we'll call a veteran here for 30 years of China, and in geopolitical space, you've pretty much predicted what's been going on over the last decade and a half. And I'd like to hear your insights on the latest flare up between Japan and China here, including Taiwan.
In fact, I'm not surprised at all. The signs were already there. I've been writing about this for a while. You see, there's Japan. It's being very gradual. Well, first of all, you need to go back to the foundation. Japan
Mm-hmm.
itself is not a sovereign state. First of all, the constitution, Japanese constitution, was written by the U.S. Japan, if you look at the party who is leading now Japan, LDP, was funded by the CIA in the 50s and 60s. There's a New York Times article. So I'm taking Western references. So you can check it up. In addition to that, you have presence of U.S. Army troops. So by definition, this is not a sovereign state. It's controlled by the U.S. I think there's a strong vetting of each leaders that are elected in Japan. It's vetted by the U.S. Same as you have in South Korea. South Korean army de facto is led by U.S. general, four-star general. And also South Korea, they have also a constitution that was written by the U.S. So you see those states, they've been always, following and so there's a hijack of democracy here. So the signs that what we're seeing these days, we saw them early on. How did it start? Recently, in the last few years, I think probably around 5-6 years ago, there was a reinterpretation of a Japanese constitution. You know, the Japanese constitution says clearly that Japan can have an army, but it needs to be a peaceful army. It's only for defense. But now they did a reinterpretation of constitution. So what does it say? It says it is peaceful army, but we can come at the help of an ally. Remember this term ally. Later on, what did they do? They defined Taiwan as an ally. So early on, a few years ago, I said, because of that, we are de facto going to a confrontation. And you see, what she said was just a logic. The leader, Japanese leader, she came out on TV and she said, we are there to defend Taiwan. Well, that's a logic. And in addition to that, why I touched South Korea, because the U.S. has created what we call a trilateral alliance, putting two old enemies, Japan and South Korea, together for the purpose of confronting China. So you see those plans, these are long-term plans, and it's a step by step. So they had to go to reinterpret the constitution, then define Taiwan as an ally, and you see this trilateral alliance. That's a clear preparation for a confrontation in the South China Sea. In addition to that, I don't know if you remember, but in South Korea, there was an attempt of coup. Recently, they did a false flag, and they wanted to blame North Korea, and they want to
Right.
turn South Korea into martial law. Martial law, what does it mean, martial law? If you have martial law, de facto, you have U.S. Army general that is in charge of the whole South Korean army. And once you have a martial law, there's no more oppositions because you are de facto at war. Uh, and there's a similar risk when you look at Taiwan. You see, the Kuomintang is the main opposition to the DPP. in Taiwan, they've been highlighting the problem. They saw what happened in South Korea and they said, you know what, we have the same problem in Taiwan. You know, there's a certain period when you declare martial law, you can actually, so this is, it is only unilateral. And then you have the legislative yuan that can actually, go against this decision. But they have pretty much, I think, 1 week time. But they wanted to shorten this to 24, 48 hours. Do you know why? Because in a week, you can take decisions that have no turning back. You cannot go back. Once you start confrontation, you cannot turn back. So you actually accelerate the war. So you see all those sanctions. So this is why a lot of people, they, a few analysts, they're saying, well, the US is shifting away from China. They're trying to have, peaceful transition. It is very far from that. The US, do you think, I mean, they've been building army bases all around China, encircling China. They've been putting chaos in all the regions. Those color revolution in Nepal, in Indonesia, they've been putting lots of pressure. Those countries are not going to shift against China, but if you create chaos, that's going to be, they're going to be reluctant just to be too close to China. I want to go back also to what I mentioned before. Encircling China, you see Nepal, the regime change that was in Nepal, they historically in Nepal, they used to have a Tibetan separatist training in Nepal, in Samsung area. And lately there was an agreement, a hidden agreement between Nepali army and the U.S. Army, and basically the long-term plan was an investment of $5 million US, and they would train the Nepali army and having long-term U.S. Army troops on the ground, but they would be there for, I would say, more like rescue operation, humanitarian, and so on. But as you see those steps, and this was unveiled to the public, and the public got really angry at this. Now you have a US puppet in charge. That means this could be reactivated. You see, and they call it a government in transition. But keep in mind that all those color revolution, they go through government in transition, but they're making drastic changes that are going to make sure that US puppet are going to be in charge, on power.
What do you think her point was with coming out with such an aggressive tone? Of course, Japan has always stuck its nose in China's business, but was this backed by some confidence from a nation, let's say America, saying, hey, let's give it a little stab here and see what happens? Do you think this is led by Americans? Are we going to see other politicians from the collective West start supporting Japan now that they've been humiliated for their massive air here? We're going to start to see the Prime Minister of maybe Australia come visit Japanese, Mr. Carney from Canada go to Japan. Are we going to see some of the neocons like Lindsey Graham roll into Japan and say, hey, we've got your back? Is this the start of something, or is this something just that will just disappear from the headlines? Because it doesn't feel like that here. And it's going all the way down to, the people on the streets are talking about it here.
No, but you have to look at the timing. She met with President Trump not long ago. So you see the timing, it's probably she had, the memo. She received the memo from the CIA and Trump saying, well, why don't we test this? It's about testing. You test it in the ground. Deng Xiaoping, he said, you have to, when you cross the river, you touch the stones to cross the river. She's doing that. She's testing Chinese red lines. And here maybe there, when you plan the ideas, you slowly plan the ideas, and then you go from there, and it escalates. What was unthinkable yesterday is going to be slowly possible today, If you repeat it quite a few times and then you make it a mainstream, main idea, then it's going to be more accepted slowly within the Japanese public. And I think what they want to do is they want to have a reaction. They're going to maybe provoke the nationalists in Japan to give her more support. You see, and I think also it's probably Japan is going through a huge crisis. I don't know if you followed right now, but in terms of finance, in terms of interest rates going up, the debt is absolutely huge. It's detained by Japanese. That's the difference, but still, the interest on debt is it is right now unsustainable. They have, and it's the recession. I just saw the figures right now. I think it's 1.9%. That's massive. So I think this is also a way just to divert a bit the attention. But keep in mind, I am absolutely sure that there's a shift happening, massive shift. Time is in favor of China, and the US is panicking. Now they are activating all the agents in the whole region, and they're creating chaos absolutely everywhere. So, and you see, it's desperate. Some actions that were unthinkable in the past. An open genocide like this in Gaza. Now an attack. Remember Iraq. They spent so many months to convince the international community. But they at the UN, they debated, they tried to find excuses and so on. Now they go to Venezuela and they say, oh, well, they have traffickers and trust me, bro. You see how aggressive it is. There's no international community. It's just one way. And you have
I agree with you. There's no checks and balances. The other thing is the this Venezuela situation. It's regime change. Let's call it for what it is. Actually, they asked Trump the other day, what are your reasons for sending the CIA into Venezuela? He says two. Well, I can only predict one of them is oil and the other one's going to be regime change. It's not narco tourism. These guys that get into the boats now, they could be tour boats, they could be vacation boats, they could be narco boats, they could be drug boats, they could be whatever. They could be human trafficking boats for all we know, maybe floating from Venezuela to, another neighboring country to get people out of the country because of economic downturns from sanctions. But I mean, who are they fooling when they're trying to tell people that, hey, we're stopping these boats from coming to America? Find me a boat with a single engine that can go 2,000 kilometers on a tank of gas. That would be quite a miracle boat to sell to the boating and yachting industry. The other thing that really bothers me is we're hearing this talk about, economies are doing great around the world. No, they're not. I mean, inflation is doing great. The markets are inflated. Just look at what's happened to the world financial markets here. Yes, the S&P was near its high. Yes, the Dow Jones was near its high. But you're seeing these European markets, which are a little bit more realistic. There's not such joyous around there, and these economies are hurting. Once America, and it could happen tonight with NVIDIA's quarterly reports that come in, if this destabilizes the whole AI run, these nations, and like many other nations across the world, are going to suffer financially. And they have no safety net to do that. And that is the issue here. I'm screaming from the roofs of the building saying, guys, if this market turns, this financial market turns, everybody's in a mess right now. Imagine what it's going to be like when all hell breaks loose on the financial markets. So that's where I think a lot of the pressure is going to be. I think that I agree with you. We're seeing diversions. We're seeing a lot of countries that are preparing for conflict. And I think the firestorm, as you say, somebody's got the memo here. There is a game plan in action here. And I'll let you take away the predictions because you've been pretty right on this for the last 3 or 4 years here. Where are we going in the world here? And is Japan going to be the ones to start it?
They will be used. Japan might be used the same as the US wanted to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian, but the US will be glad to fight China to the last Japanese, to the last Korean, and to the last Filipino, because I see 3 countries that might be not that are willing. Actually, those countries are not willing, but because they're hijacked, they might not have any choices. They have leaders. They have they are that are controlled by the US, and they might be used. Now, just going back to, you mentioned the finance, and I think it's important for people to understand that the finance is a huge element. It's the US dollar hegemony, which is part of this US empire. You know, once you lose the US dollar hegemony, you cannot finance $1 trillion of defense spending. I will say my word is very simple. Look at everything that is happening around gold. It's all about gold. I will give you I just did a study, very easy. The housing market, if priced in gold, the last 15 years have been decreasing by 50%, even though the housing is in a huge bubble, but still, if priced in gold, it has been decreasing by 50%. That gives you some indication. Now, you mentioned before the S&P and so on, and all those markets are still going up. But you know, because there's a lot of liquidity. If you have liquidity, let's say you don't have the choice, you don't buy into gold, you know, for X reasons, because you don't want. Now, what is the alternative? Housing, maybe housing, you know, but
Crypto.
but at least what they're saying is that if I hold cash, I lose on inflation, and inflation is probably much more than they're saying. But people, they are like, I invest into stock market, and I would say, you know, it's not even right now. We used to say, if you invest money, we used to say you need to aim at performance. Right now, I would say what you need to aim is hedging inflation. Don't look for performance. You need to hedge inflation, and by definition, in dollar terms, you are going to have a performance. But you see, it's normal. But you know, percentage of return is just really, because you need to look at the purchasing power. So I would say my benchmark is no more looking the performance in dollar, but looking the performance in gold. That makes much more sense, because there's so much inflation, right?
Totally agree with you. 100% agree with you on gold here, because when the world's on fire, everybody flocks to it, and you know, it's quietly moved its way up to 4,000. And the average person that I talk to that doesn't pay attention to gold says, you know, they're going out and they're buying jewelry and they're saying, you know, I used to get jewelry for not a bad price, but something's going on with gold. And when you hear Mom and Pa's talk about it, the shit's real.
Well, Alex, since you touched this on gold, I want to tell you, I mean, there's one topic that you might be interested in covering is China has created the gold corridor. I don't know if you're aware of that, but basically China is building vaults in many countries. We are talking about in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, all those BRICS and allied countries. They're building vaults and they're putting Chinese gold there. So you see, the US used to have, I guarantee the US dollar, and I guarantee there's a gold in my vault. The Chinese, they say, I build the vault in your country, and if you buy and you actually you use RMB or currency, you can go to the vaults that you have in your own country, and you can exchange it against gold. So you see my point. What they're saying is that they're building so much trust right now, because there were so many excuses. Why should I buy with your currency and so on? China is saying, well, you know what? I'm going to do it. The US, they said, I'm backing with gold. China is saying, well, you know what? My gold, I put it in your vault in your country. You need to exchange my RMB. Well, go there and you exchange it. And this is all going to be checked, you know, backed by blockchain. Blockchain, you know, it's very easy to track, very easy to control. You cannot overinflate your reserve or you know, downplaying your reserve. This is going to be all transparent. So those are elements. You see, the fight. There's a lot of talk of the US. And this is all physical, kinetic, and lots of, I would say, blah blah. China is very quiet. It is not emotional. It's doing the stuff, and this is real. If you defeat the US dollar, you make your opponents not being able to fund $1 trillion army.
It's incredible. So let's just end it off here on your predictions on how this Japanese is, the prime minister is going to try to cool this, or is this China just saying, you know what, guys, we're not going to back down. That is pretty provocative words. We think you're up to something. we're going to push back. We're warning our citizens from going there. We're not going to travel there. We're going to slow down diplomatic ties. We're going to slow down trade for your tech sector. We're going to slow down, distribution of, rare earths that you need to make this. Where is Japan in all of this? What's going to happen? I want to hear it from you.
No, I would say China. You see what happened when it was a trade war. They go very far. They're not emotional. They're playing the long-term game. And usually China is not about threat. They're trying to engage first. You see, they gain leverage to engagement. The more they engage, and it's all rational, really. You see, I forgot her name, but she might not be always there. They're playing the long-term game. If you get emotional with her, then it's going to be a problem country to country. She actually, you need to make a point. That's where we are now with Japan. But I forgot just to mention before, all the signals are there. Japan is increased by 60% its defense spending. Those are also indicators. So the China knows the long-term plan is Japan is going to be used. And it's going to be used, in terms of logistic by the U.S. Because it's close to Taiwan. So they're preparing. They know, but they still need to play the smart card. You don't want to be too aggressive. You see, sometimes you use weapons, and that's where Trump is completely wrong. You see the threat. It's as long as you have the threat, but you don't use that threat. It's still a weapon, but once you've used it, there's no turning back. It's a one-time use. China had to make a point. They had to make a point. But I don't see, that is not China going through sanctions and so on. They don't believe. Actually, when you look at the multipolar world is one of the rules is no, we do not put sanctions. What we do is look for what unites us and set aside the differences, meaning we will always have differences, even allies. But we need to focus on engagement. And China, they know that, and it makes sense. The more you engage with your adversary, the more you have common interest. You see, if you trade more with me, then I have more leverage on you, and you, same as you, because we have common interest. So I would say I don't see China going, strong on strong, antagonizing Japan. What's the use of that? Don't do that, but they had to make a point. There's also, the history between Japan and China.
Yeah.
Japan has never accepted, never put any excuses on what it did to both South Korea and China. So the tensions are still there. The Chinese people cannot accept the insult that she did. So they had to make a point, and that's all we're doing. And right now, just backtracking and so on. But the long-term game is, it was a test, pushing the button. What was not acceptable, and then you might have more politicians in Japan that are going to do that, and you see those tests. I give you another example of tests they're doing. In the U.S., there's a bill that came out was to accept the symbols, Taiwanese symbols in the U.S.
Right.
Imagine what it means. And this is, it might seem trivial, but that means that basically, if you have let's say a lower level politicians from Taiwan coming to the U.S., imagine if in the Congress you had like a Taiwanese flags, or even the anthem or so, and those visuals look extremely bad. So you see, it's salami slicing, bits by bits,
Right.
bits by bits, and what was not acceptable yesterday might be acceptable tomorrow.
It's incredible. So tell the audience where you are right now, what you're up to, and we'll close it out after that. And when we close the show, we'll just go backstage, so it will automatically upload our chat tonight for higher resolution. Might need you for 5 minutes, but just tell the you gotta go.
Just an excuse. I'm in Bel Air, like a very basic room. Just it's not the best setting. My plan is right now, I'm using this time to be in South America. So first of all, there's this event, COP30. We're exposing the Gaza genocide, all this COP30. This, not scam, but I would say, there's a huge hypocrisy there. Then I'm looking at a few places to go. I used to live in Venezuela, so I know very well the country. And right now, I want to report from there. And maybe Patrick Lacaste might be joining me, and maybe you later.
Yep.
I want to maybe go to Argentina, and also there are elections in Chile, 14th of December. And right now, you have a party, you have a politician that is leading. He's communist. I mean, it's not even socialist. We're talking about a communist that is leading against a far right politician, another far right politician. So I want to maybe check that on the 14th of December. So probably the next 2 months I will be in the region, and then I'll come back to China.
Okay, well, that is absolutely amazing. And I look forward to running into you. Let's hope somewhere in South America.
We will,
thank
my
you,
friend.
Sir. I know you got a busy day. Give us a plug. Where can everybody find you?
Just I'm mainly on X. I've been banned many places. It's just the algorithm it's not working anymore. It's just no. So I have a YouTube channel that I don't use much, Angelo, Giuliano. But other than that, X, it's you have to type in Angelo in China, just all together.
Okay, fantastic. We'll send everybody there. Thank you very much, sir. I'll let you get on with your day. Cheers.
Thank you, my friend. Cheers.
Bye-bye.